847 hours, Tehran Azadi Square. The morning sun bleaches white stone as thousands gather beneath the Azadi Tower's sweeping arches, their chants rhythmic, practiced, controlled. Then a 12-foot effigy ignites, and the square erupts into something far more complex than routine protest. The structure burns with theatrical precision. Witnesses report the figure draped in crimson fabric, chest emblazoned with a six-pointed star, forehead bearing a single word in Farsi and English, Baal. Within 90 seconds, smartphone footage saturates encrypted channels, Telegram, Twitter, WhatsApp networks spanning 17 time zones. The algorithmic cascade begins immediately. By 09:03 hours, the video accumulates 1.4 million views across fragmented platforms. By 1100 hours, that figure exceeds 8 million. The information warfare specialists monitoring open-source intelligence networks in Langley, Tel Aviv, and London recognize the signature instantly. This is not spontaneous rage. This is engineered symbolism designed for maximum interpretive chaos, symbolic payload analysis, multi-vector narrative weaponization. The effigy operates on 3 simultaneous semiotic frequencies, each calibrated to trigger distinct audience responses across incompatible ideological ecosystems. Intelligence analysts categorize the symbolic architecture as follows. Layer 1. The Baal designation. Ancient Canaanite deity. Biblical antagonist. Modern conspiratorial shorthand for elite pedophile networks. Epstein-adjacent corruption. Satanic ritual abuse narratives permeating Canaan-adjacent communities. The term carries 2,800 years of accumulated symbolic density. Iranian state media outlets do not deploy this reference casually. The choice signals intentional engagement with Western conspiratorial vernacular, a linguistic bridge designed to recruit fringe Western audiences into anti-Israel solidarity frameworks. The message structure follows established hybrid warfare. Doctrine: use the enemy's own mythology against itself. Layer 2, the Star of David. 6-pointed hexagram. Israeli national symbol since 1948. Zionist iconography. But also deliberately, cynically, the geometric shape conspiracists associate with occult practices, synagogue of Satan rhetoric, and anti-Semitic tropes spanning centuries. The placement on the effigy's chest creates plausible deniability. Iranian officials claim the target is Zionism, not Judaism. Western observers note the blurred line becomes functionally irrelevant when the symbol burning is the Magan David itself. The ambiguity is the weapon. Layer 3, the chant. Marg bar Ezrael, death to Israel. The phrase echoes across the square in waves, amplified by megaphones positioned at cardinal points. Linguists note the absence of qualifiers. Not death to Israeli policy, not end the occupation. The formulation is absolute, eliminationist, designed for maximum shock value in Western media. Cycles while maintaining revolutionary legitimacy within Iranian domestic discourse. State television broadcasts the chant unedited. International outlets loop the footage with ominous background scoring. Both actions serve escalation. At 0917 hours. The first counter-narratives mobilized. Pro-Israel social media operations, both organic and state-adjacent, begin disseminating contextual framing. The narrative architecture emphasizes 3 pillars. This is state-sanctioned anti-Semitism. This validates existential threat assessments, justifying Israeli military posture. This exposes the moral bankruptcy of any pro-Palestinian movement allying with Tehran. Within 12 minutes, verified accounts with audiences exceeding 5 million followers deploy the footage with captions linking the imagery to Holocaust rhetoric, pogrom history, and contemporary security threats. The engagement metrics are catastrophic, 340,000 shares in the first hour. The algorithm interprets controversy as engagement, controversy as value. The content proliferates. In 0934 hours, the conspiratorial ecosystem activates. Canon-adjacent forums, Telegram channels trafficking in Great Awakening mythology, and alternative media platforms interpret the Baal effigy as validation. The logic structure operates as follows. If Iranian protesters recognize Baal as the symbol of elite satanic corruption, then the conspiracy theories about global pedophile networks are confirmed. If Israel is symbolically linked to Baal, then Zionism itself becomes implicated in the occult elite structure. The reasoning is circular, self-referential, and utterly immune to factual correction. Within 40 minutes, video compilations appear. The Tehran footage interspersed with Epstein Island drone footage, archived photographs of Bohemian Grove ceremonies, and AI-generated narration suggesting the protesters possess knowledge Western media suppresses. The videos accumulate 600,000 views before platform moderation systems flag them. By then, mirror copies exist on 14 alternative hosting services. At 10-12 hours, academic and journalistic analysis begins emerging. Scholars specializing in Iranian political theater note the effigy's construction quality professional, not improvised. The symbolism's sophistication suggests state coordination, not grassroots anger. The Baal reference indicates awareness of Western conspiratorial discourse, likely amplified through Russian and Chinese information operations that have spent years cultivating anti-establishment narratives in American and European digital spaces. The strategic objective becomes clear. Create a symbolic artifact so interpretively unstable that every ideological faction can claim it has evidence for pre-existing beliefs. Pro-Israel hawks see genocidal intent. Anti-Zionist activists see legitimate resistance to apartheid. Conspiracy theorists see confirmation of occult elite networks. Each group amplifies the footage to different audiences, achieving what no single propaganda campaign could accomplish alone: total information saturation across the entire political spectrum. The geopolitical combustion sequence, strategic implications. Cascade. By 1200 hours, government responses begin coordinating. The Israeli Foreign Ministry issues a formal statement condemning the imagery as incitement to genocide, masquerading as political protest. The language is precise, legalistic, designed for international criminal court proceedings and congressional testimony. 18 minutes later, the U.S. State Department releases a measured condemnation citing deeply troubling anti-Semitic imagery, while conspicuously avoiding direct mention of Iran by name. A calculated hedge reflecting ongoing backdoor negotiations over nuclear enrichment timelines. The European Union's response arrives 4 hours later, sufficiently delayed to signal diplomatic caution, sufficiently condemnatory to appease domestic Jewish communities. All forms of hatred targeting religious symbols must be rejected. Iran's Foreign Ministry response arrives at 16:45 hours Tehran time. The statement is a masterclass in plausible deniability. The protest is characterized as the Iranian people's legitimate expression of solidarity with the oppressed Palestinian nation. The Baal symbolism is not addressed. The Star of David's presence is dismissed as Zionist propaganda, misrepresenting anti-colonial resistance as religious hatred. The formulation accomplishes two objectives simultaneously. It provides domestic audiences with revolutionary legitimacy while offering international observers just enough ambiguity to fracture unified condemnation. Germany's response differs from France's. France's differs from Britain's. The coalition fractures. At 18:30 hours, the incident escalates beyond symbolic warfare. Reports emerge from Jerusalem of a stabbing attack near Damascus Gate. The assailant, apprehended alive, is found with smartphone footage of the Tehran effigy in his recent viewing history. Israeli security services immediately classify the incident as terror attack inspired by incitement. Palestinian authorities counter that the attacker has a documented history of mental illness and that causality cannot be established. The evidentiary ambiguity is irrelevant. The narrative link is made. The Tehran effigy is now connected to bloodshed. The symbolic has become kinetic. Within 3 hours, the Israeli Defense Forces conduct airstrikes on targets in Syria, identified as Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps' logistics hubs. The operation, codenamed Righteous Fury, in leaked communications, destroys 7 structures and kills an estimated 19 personnel. The IDF spokesperson's unit releases a statement emphasizing the strike's target: Iran's entrenchment in Syria and its ongoing efforts to arm terror proxies. The Tehran effigy is not mentioned in official communications. It does not need to be. Every news outlet covering the strikes includes the footage. The visual and the violent are now permanently fused in the global information stream. Doctrinal analysis. The weaponization of symbolic ambiguity. What unfolds in the 72 hours following the effigy burning represents a textbook case of fourth-generation warfare's informational dimension. The traditional battlefield geography, firepower, maneuver is subordinated to the semiotic battlefield where meaning itself becomes contested terrain. The Iranian operation succeeds not because it convinces audiences of a single narrative, but because it creates infinite narratives simultaneously, each reinforcing pre-existing biases, each driving engagement, each making rational discourse impossible. The Baal symbolism functions as what information warfare theorists term a semantic, i.e. a symbolic payload designed to detonate across multiple interpretive frameworks simultaneously. For evangelical Christians steeped in biblical literalism, Baal represents demonic opposition to Judeo-Christian civilization. For conspiracy theorists, Baal represents elite trafficking networks and occult power structures. For secular leftists, the term is meaningless except as religious extremism. For Israeli security analysts, the term is irrelevant. The Star of David's presence is the only data point that matters. Each group processes identical imagery through incompatible cognitive frameworks, arriving at mutually exclusive conclusions, yet all amplify the content. The operation achieves total information spectrum dominance without requiring a single, coherent message. The tactical lessons are immediate. State actors no longer require message discipline. They require message chaos. The objective is not persuasion, but polarization, not clarity but confusion. The most effective propaganda in the networked age is propaganda that means everything and nothing simultaneously. Propaganda that recruits its own audience into collaborative meaning-making. Propaganda that turns viewers into co-creators of the narrative. Iran's symbolic operators understand this doctrine at a level that rivals Russian and Chinese information warfare theorists. The effigy is not a message, it is a virus. And every share, every rebuttal, every condemnation, every analysis replicates it. The anti-Semitism threshold. Definitional warfare as strategic terrain by the 48-hour mark. The debate metastasizes beyond the incident itself into foundational questions of definition. Is burning a Star of David inherently anti-Semitic? Or does context determine meaning? If the stated intent is anti-Zionism, does that intent negate the symbol's broader meaning? Can imagery be divorced from its historical resonance? Or does the Star of David carry immutable significance, regardless of contemporary political framing? Jewish organizations across the spectrum issue statements. The Anti-Defamation League categorizes the effigy as unambiguous anti-Semitism, weaponizing ancient hatred in modern geopolitical conflict. Jewish Voice for Peace, representing a progressive, anti-Zionist minority, releases a counter-statement arguing the incident is weaponized by pro-Israel advocates to conflate legitimate criticism of Israeli policy with bigotry. The definitional fracture is absolute. Both groups claim to speak for Jewish safety. Both groups arrive at opposite conclusions. The ambiguity is not accidental. It is engineered. This represents the apex of contemporary information warfare, manufacturing. Incidents so interpretively unstable that they weaponize the very concept of truth itself. There is no neutral observation point. Every analysis is predetermined by ideological priors. The Iranian operation does not need to convince anyone of anything. It only needs to ensure that productive dialogue becomes impossible, that shared reality fractures into tribal epistemologies, that the information environment becomes so toxic that exhaustion replaces engagement, that at 76 hours post-incident, casualty assessments solidify. The Jerusalem stabbing victim survives with serious injuries. The Syrian strikes kill 19, with Iranian state media claiming 4 were civilian contractors. Social media platforms remove 127,000 pieces of content related to the effigy for violations of hate speech policies, community guidelines, and terms of service. The removals trigger immediate backlash from free speech advocates, who argue the footage documents newsworthy political protest. The counter-backlash from anti-hate organizations argues the platforms acted too slowly, too timidly. The content moderation debate becomes another front in the same symbolic war. There is no resolution, only escalation. Strategic ramifications. The post-symbol landscape, the long-term implications, extend far beyond a single protest incident. The Tehran effigy establishes a new baseline for symbolic warfare in the Israel-Iran shadow conflict. Future operations will calibrate against this precedent. Iranian planners now possess confirmation that hybrid symbolic attacks fusing religious imagery, conspiratorial mythology, and anti-Zionist politics can achieve information saturation without risking kinetic retaliation. The cost-benefit analysis is stark. 12 feet of fabric, 4 hours of planning, 0 military expenditure. And the result is 3 days of global media coverage, diplomatic fracturing, and radicalization acceleration across multiple constituencies. Israeli strategic planners face an asymmetric dilemma. Kinetic responses to symbolic provocations risk escalation spirals while providing limited deterrent value. Non-kinetic responses, diplomatic condemnations, social media campaigns, appear weak to domestic audiences demanding forceful leadership. The symbolic attack exploits a fundamental vulnerability in democratic societies: the requirement to respond to provocations through processes that are inherently slower, more constrained, and less viscerally satisfying than the provocations themselves. Authoritarian regimes operate under no such constraints. They can manufacture symbolic attacks at will, knowing democratic responses will always lag, always appear inadequate, always fracture along internal political fault lines. The conspiratorial ecosystem emerges as an unexpected strategic winner. The Baal effigy provides conspiracy communities with a propaganda windfall. Footage of foreign protesters apparently validating core mythological claims about satanic elites, occult networks, and suppressed truth. The fact that Iranian state operators likely engineered the symbolism specifically to exploit these communities is irrelevant. Conspiracy logic is immune to ironic appropriation. If elites use conspiracy theories as cover, that only proves the conspiracy goes deeper. The circular reasoning is impenetrable. The radicalization accelerates. The 96-hour assessment, no resolution, only metastasis. 4 days after the effigy burns, the information battlefield achieves a state of permanent contestation. Pro-Israel organizations cite the incident in fundraising emails and congressional testimony as evidence of existential threat. Anti-Zionist activists cite the same incident as evidence of Zionist propaganda manufacturing anti-Semitism, claims to delegitimize Palestinian solidarity. Conspiracy theorists cite the incident as proof of occult elite networks. Mainstream media outlets cite the incident as proof of rising global anti-Semitism. All narratives are correct within their respective epistemological frameworks. All narratives are mutually incompatible. This is not a failure of the information ecosystem. This is the ecosystem functioning exactly as designed in an age of weaponized ambiguity. The tactical action officers monitoring this operation from Tehran's Strategic Communications Command assess their mission objectives as exceeded. The operation cost less than $4,000 in materials and labor. It generated an estimated 400 million global impressions across social, traditional, and alternative media platforms. It accelerated polarization across 7 separate ideological constituencies. It forced adversary governments into reactive postures. It required 0 kinetic assets. The return on investment is incalculable. Closing analysis. The symbolic becomes strategic. The burning effigy in Azadi Square represents more than protest theater. It represents the maturation of information warfare into something approaching strategic parity with kinetic operations. The age of symbolic warfare is not emerging, it has arrived. State actors now possess the capability to manufacture interpretive chaos at scale, to weaponize meaning itself, to turn their adversaries' own information ecosystems into engines of self-destruction. The most dangerous missile is the one that convinces you to fire at your own allies. The effigy burned for 17 minutes in Tehran. Its informational afterlife is permanent. The flames are extinguished. The fire spreads still. And in operation centers across 3 continents, analysts watch the metrics climb, the engagement spike, the fracture deepen, and understand that the next symbolic strike is already in planning. Already calibrated to exploit the wounds this one opened. Already designed to ensure that shared reality becomes impossible and tribal epistemology becomes inevitable. The square is empty now. The effigy is ash. But the symbol lives on not as truth, but as weapon. And the war for meaning continues, unresolved, unending, and utterly without front lines to defend.